Okay, so just to finish off and continue where I left off because the camera cut out. I was talking about how we can also use this idea of pre-positioning and changing foot position to affect the hip in order to progress to treatment or give the patient an exercise. So in the example of my hip, supposing you found that the hip was restricted in left hip was restricted in external rotation, as it is, what could we do about that? Well, we could just turn that toe in a little bit and put that hip in a more comfortable position and then just drive into external rotation again. And that feels a lot more comfortable for my knee. It feels good on my hip. And then you just gradually progress that, and you could take the toe out a little bit more and a little bit more until you got to a point where it wasn't comfortable or it was affecting the knee, and that might just be as far as you would go in that treatment session or with that homework exercise. So just some ideas about how we can use this idea not just for assessment but also for moving into treatment as well. Now, the last thing I just wanted to go through was this, what we would do if we had a patient who had an acute low back, and therefore we might not want to drive this exercise, this assessment using the arms. So what could we do? Well, in that situation, let's imagine it's low back pain. We can do the same sort of hip assessment, but we want to keep the pelvis and the trunk in sync, if you like. So what might that look like? So instead of using an arm driver, let's start with rotation, because I think that demonstrates it very well. So if I wanted to look at internal rotation of my left hip, I might take a patient to the wall, have them just stand on that single leg balance on that left side, toe touch out front with the opposite leg. Now, I could just have them tap around there, and that's going to give me internal rotation, but I'm getting rotation through my thorax now, and the low back. So I'm going to take this arm with me, so we go round, so I'm taking the trunk and the pelvis together, so we're getting that internal rotation at the hip without really creating any rotation or change in position, relative position between my trunk and my pelvis. If I wanted to externally rotate this hip, then change hands and we go out round the other way. Again, and you can kind of get the pelvis, you can get your hands on the pelvis, just as we did before. What about abduction and adduction? Well, abduction we can just go wide. So before we were using an arm driver, this time we don't want to do that, so we might just do a lunge side to side. And of course this depends on the patient and what they present with, and it might be that they've got knee pain, they can't do this. But you can generally find a way around it. So, adduction, how are we going to do that? Well, one idea would be to just step across and just lunge again into the right knee, but I'm testing adduction of the left hip in this situation, and if I went across this way, that would be adduction of the right hip. Flexion extension. Again, depends how acute the patient is. Sometimes you can't do everything you'd like to do with an acute patient, but I'd say for an awful lot of patients with, quite significant low back pain who might not be able to forward bend, they usually can if you give them a wider base and ask them to reach down and forward. They can usually do that because they're loading the hip more. This is kind of the exercise that we're doing anyway, because they're loading the hip and the pelvis and the back. This is all happening at the hip rather than at the low back. They can usually achieve this movement pretty well. So we could kind of stick with what we did in the initial assessment for that one. Extension, however, probably not going to want to drive back overhead. So how might I tweak that? Well, I might just make that so that we just allow the knee of the front leg to go forward over the toe, so the pelvis just translates forward, but again, the orientation of the trunk or the low back and the pelvis stays fairly relatively the same. Now, if they don't have very good hip extension, that might